we were discussing the 11th chapter of the Bhagawad Gita, and this is a very beautiful chapter where Krishna reveals himself to his devotee, Arjuna. Arjuna requests that, and we mentioned how this is Arjuna speaking on behalf of all of us as devotees. We can hear about God, we can read about God, we can rationally think about God, we approach God and in that way, but no matter what the answer is, we want to also experience God. This is what the heart wants. And so Arjuna expresses the devotee's desire. He says, Krishna, Guru, reveal thyself to me in thy infinite cosmic form. I want to experience and I want to know thee from inside, experientially. And Krishna, of course, reveals himself to Arjuna in this very beautiful, beautiful chapter. And Arjuna expresses, or Sanjaya is actually expressing what Arjuna experiences, how he sees Krishna in his cosmic form. Well, he has that. He has that experience. And then he then comes out of that experience and he addresses Krishna in this last part, and I'd like to begin here and read this last part, and then we'll discuss this further. Arjuna is speaking. He says, "Hail to thee in front, behind, and everywhere, boundless in power and immeasurable in might. Thou art in all, and therefore thou art all. For whatever disrespect I may have shown thee in jest, addressing thee as friend, companion, Krishna, Yadava, speaking carelessly though with affection, and for any irreverence I may have shown thee, O unshakable Lord, light-heartedly while eating, resting, walking, when we are seated together, whether by ourselves or in the company of others, for all such unintended slights, O illimitable Lord, I beg your forgiveness. Father of all beings, thou art, of animate and inanimate alike. None is worthy of worship but thee, O Guru sublime. Unequal by anyone in the three worlds, who can surpass thee, O Lord of incomparable power? Therefore, O thou mighty, infinitely adorable, I cast myself humbly at thy feet, imploring thy pardon. As a father to a son, as a friend to a dear friend, as a lover to his beloved, do thou, beloved Lord, forgive me. Overjoyed I am by this cosmic vision, never beheld before. Yet I confess, my mind is not free from terror. O merciful to me, O Lord of gods and shelter of the world, show me thyself once again in thy form. And so he's begging Krishna, after this sublime experience of seeing him in the cosmic infinity, asks once again that he be shown in his form that's familiar to him. And he goes on to say, I long to see thee, O Krishna, in the form that is familiar to most. As forearmed Vishnu, diademed, his mace and discus held aloft, O Lord of 1,000 arms, for the reassurance of many appear to me now in that known shape. The blessed Lord said, by my grace, exercising my yoga power, I reveal to you, as to none other, the supreme form of mine, radiant, infinite. No mortal man, save thee alone, great hero of the Kuru dynasty, has looked upon my universal form, not by sacrifices, nor by gifts in charity, nor by noble works, nor by pious study of the Vedas can this vision be attained. Be not fearful, nor bewildered by this vision of the holy and personal aspect of my being. Take comfort, be glad of heart, and behold me in this, my reassuring aspect. Sanjaya said, having thus addressed Arjuna, Vasudeva appeared once again, comfortingly to his disciple in his own human form. Arjuna said, O granter of all boons, Viewing you once again in the human form I love, my mind is pacified and I am once again myself. The blessed Lord said, very difficult is it to behold as you have done the vision of the divine universe. Even the gods yearn to see it. Its revelation, however, is not attained by penances or by faithfulness to Scripture or by charities or by formal worship, O Scorcher of Foes. Only by single-hearted devotion, achieved through deep yoga practice, is it possible to behold me and to become one with me, as you have done in my cosmic form. Now let me read that again. It's a very important line. Only by single-hearted devotion, achieved through deep yoga practice, is it possible to behold me, to become one with me, as you have done in my cosmic form. He who serves me alone, who makes me his only goal, who lovingly surrenders every thought of I to me, who releases all attachment to aught else, and who, beholding me in all, bears no ill will toward anyone, he, O Arjuna, enters my vast being. Isn't that magnificent? Reading that, it's so inspiring, one feels uplifted. And as I read that, I reminisce that it reminds me of that poem of Paramhansa Yogananda's Samadhi, which we read in the autobiography of a yogi, where he, as you remember, he's meditating in the ashram of his guru, and his meditation is light. It's light. He's not going very deep, and his guru calls him. He says, Mukunda, and he calls back to his guru. He says, Guruji, I'm meditating. And Sri Yukteswar says, yes, I know how you're meditating. His mind is going hither and yon. Come, I want you to come to me. And grudgingly, Mukunda Yoganandaji, as a boy, goes up to his guru, and his guru takes pity on him, says, poor boy, and taps him on the chest. And as it's described in the autobiography of a yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda says, the breath was sucked out of me, as if sucked out of me, and his consciousness began to soar. And he began to look about, and he noticed his vision was beyond the normal, and he had began in this transcendental state that he began to enter into. He could see through the walls and through in the distance. He began to understand, and little by little his consciousness expanded further and further and further out into the galaxies, out into the into infinity itself. And he goes on to describe this cosmic vision that is very similar to what we read here in the Bhagawad Gita. And what Paramhansa Yogananda was describing was this cosmic vision of Samadhi. And as he experienced that vision, and finally he came back into the body, into his normal self, Swami Sri Yukteswar handed him a broom. He says, let us sweep the ashram, and reminding him that he had to not only experience this cosmic vision, but he had to also be practical and not forget his daily duties. And so they went about their duties. It was so beautiful reading that, and it reminds me, and we, in both reading the Bhagavad Gita and reading that poem of Samadhi, what an exalted state that state of Samadhi is. And it touches us as we read it, because all of us deep down who have some understanding of these teachings long for that state. We want to experience that ourselves. I remember when I first read the autobiography of a yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda, he says through the practice of this Kriya Yoga, we can be the sincere devotee who goes deep can learn to experience that for themselves. Perhaps it would take 3 years, 4 years, or for those a little longer, 12 years, or 24 years, and 48 years. And he went on like that. And then I jokingly look back on my time when I first came to these teachings, and I only remembered the 3 or 4 years part of that statement and forgot the 12, 24, and 48. But we come to it and we think, yes, this is going to be easy. All I have to do is practice these techniques of Kriya Yoga, and this samadhi experience will be mine. And Master presented it that way, because that's true for the sincere, deep yogi who comes with perhaps a background from previous lifetimes of long practice. Just a little bit of practice in this lifetime reawakens that, and we can enter into that. And a good example of that is Rajarsi Janakananda, who came to Master as a very successful businessman, but as he self-described himself, his nervous system was shot. He was a nervous man, but yet he met Yogananda, and there was this instant recognition from past lives. And very quickly, because of the depth of his past yoga practice and also the intensity of his concentration ability in this life, he was very quickly to enter that state of samadhi. And so he presented the state of samadhi, Yogananda did, as something easily attainable, which is a fact for those who have prepared themselves. Yogananda said, we must be prepared, in body and nervous system, must be prepared to be able to withstand the shock of cosmic consciousness. But without that, we're not ready, and we have to, and this is the practice of Kriya Yoga. This is the practice of why we undertake the spiritual discipline, to prepare ourselves. But whether it takes a few years, or 12 years, or a lifetime, or how many lifetimes, what does it matter if we're moving in that direction and we have the taste of God that calls us toward that cosmic vision? I laugh when I remember myself, of course, in my naivety of coming onto the spiritual path, but also the general lack of knowledge of what it takes to be able to receive and experience and to draw the grace to oneself, the blessedness of this vision. There was one of my fellow acharyas who sometimes also participates in these Gita discourses, Swami Devrishi. He was, and one of his functions when he was in the United States, and he continues this a little bit here in India, is to be in charge of our Kriya Sangha. And so those people who have questions about Kriya, we recommend that they give him a call. And he takes that duty. And he was relating a story to me recently about a fellow who called him up and asked him a question. Said, I've been investigating different spiritual paths, and another spiritual path, which I won't name the name of, says that they can guarantee that I will have the experience of samadhi in 6 months. I would like to know, what can you offer? And it was as if it was just, he was shopping, you might say, for something, and that this fellow, the price is 6 months, can you beat his price? And he was approaching it in that way. And of course, Devrishi was very respectful to the fellow and tried to set him straight that, well, you have to understand, this isn't something that people think that can be purchased. It's on the marketplace, you might say, of spirituality. If I only find the right seller in the marketplace, I'll be able to purchase it easily. It's not so easy as that. Devotees, as Krishna makes very clear, this is, even the gods themselves want this vision and find it very hard. There's a story of Dr. Lewis, who was Yogananda's first disciple, a very deep man and a great soul, coming to him, to Master after had been practicing for some time, some years, and pestering his guru for samadhi. Wanted, give me samadhi, give me samadhi. And Master would always deflect the inquiry and put him off, until finally one day Dr. Lewis was very, very insistent, and so began to pester and cornered him to the point where Master had to give him some response. And Master stopped and looked very penetratingly into his eyes and said in a very stern voice, and looking into his eyes, "If I give it to you, can you take it?" And Dr. Lewis was shocked by the intensity of Master's voice, and he stopped. And he looked down, he says, no, no, sir. See, you have to prepare yourself, because there's the amount of energy that passes through one in this state of samadhi is not inconsiderable. And this is through the practice of Kriya Yoga, this is what we do. We prepare ourselves for that cosmic vision. There was another disciple that approached Rajarsi Janakananda who did have that samadhi, and approached him, pestering him for samadhi. And Rajarsi told him, he says, if I was to give this to you, your development is not such that you'd be able to hold it and to keep it. And what would happen is you would lose it. And once you lost it, you would be so miserable you could not stand your life. You see, to be able to have that and then have it go away and then have the recollection of it, life itself would become meaningless for that fellow. He would be so lost that with the feeling they would have in his heart of having it missing. So once we've attained that state of samadhi, it's transformative for us. But to simply attain that state doesn't mean that we have that state forever. We must then have further work to do to be able to go beyond that initial state to a state even higher. The yogis say that first experience of divine samadhi as explained in the autobiography of a yogi. This is known as savikalpa samadhi. And it's a state where we go into that trance-like state of the body itself is as if dead. The breath is pulled out of the body, and we're in that state of other consciousness, experiencing that samadhi state. But then, as at the appropriate time, we come back into the body. And as it says in the autobiography of a yogi, Master says that after he'd experienced that samadhi state, his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar, taught him how to be able to enter into that state at will. You see, the first experience came through Guru's grace. And this is also something very necessary. It comes through grace. It's not something that comes through our own egoic self-will, because the state of samadhi is beyond the state of ego. We have to transcend that state, that I am the doer. I am the one that has summoned this state of cosmic consciousness to us. We have to be able to let that go. And so this is why it's said that we must have the blessings of the Guru to be able to transmit that to us. And then we draw that state. So he was given that state, but then afterwards it says in the Gita that Sri Yukteswar taught him how to be able to enter into that ecstatic state at will. And so daily he would then go into that. As it said in the Bible, referencing this very process, St. Paul says, verily, verily, I die daily. And Yogananda said what that meant was that he would die, in a sense, physically, be able to drop the body, dump the body, as Yogananda would say, and to be able to enter into that high state. And so finally, through repeated practice of learning to enter at will into the divine state, one transcends one's ego completely. As it says in the poem Samadhi, it says, I, the cosmic sea, watched the little ego floating in me. It wasn't that the ego was annihilated. It was just that the identity and who and what we are identified with the cosmic self, not with the little individual self. And from that perspective, we can see ourselves impersonally. That little I is still there, and when it's necessary to pick it back up again, we can identify with it in order to function. Now, in the higher state of samadhi, known as nirvikalpa samadhi, we learn to be able to retain that cosmic state of awareness of I as the cosmic sea, even in our working state. Then the ego just functions as a little tool. We can use it, but yet we never lose contact with this higher state of awareness of I and the Cosmic Father, the Cosmic Mother are one. That's our essential reality. From the lower state of Savikalpa Samadhi, it's said that we can attain it, but we can fall from that state. And it's said that when a person who has attained that high state does, which happens from time to time, people do fall from that state. It's very, you might say, spiritually painful, because we have the remembrance of it very vividly, but yet we've lost it. But yet that pain itself is a motivator. And to some degree, all of us in our divine memory have that memory of that state of unity, because we're children of the infinite, we're children of the light, we're children of God, and so in some divine memory we remember that, and it's that memory which calls us again and again, lifetime after lifetime, to seek that, and we long for that. And this is why it's said that in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that the spiritual path is a path of smriti, memory, reawakening that divine memory that exists within us. So this is what in this cosmic vision, this is what Paramhansa Yogananda is expressing, and this is what Arjuna is expressing. A nice story that expresses all of the, you might say, the longing of each of our souls is told by Roy Eugene Davis, a disciple of Yogananda, who as a young man came to Yogananda, and from time to time Paramhansa Yogananda and Rajasi would together be in deep states of ecstasy and meditating with the monks, of which Roy Eugene Davis was one of them at the ashram. And at such times, each of the monks would come up to Master and to Rajasi to receive their blessings. One by one they came up, and Roy says that he was new at that time, and he went up to Master and he prayed to Master and was about to bless him. He says, "Master, please bless me with samadhi." And Master gently reached down and tugged on a little bit of his hair, and turned and looked at Rajasi, who was next to him, and says, "Did you hear that? The boy wants me, what do you think of that? The boy wants to give me to give him samadhi." And Rajasi, who was just sitting there in a divine state, says, "Bless his heart." Very light, you could just sort of imagine it, bless his heart. But Master just blessed him, didn't give him the samadhi. but that, I thought it was very sweet, because that's what all of us want. We're longing for that. And so it's not wrong to pray for that. It's not wrong to want that, because we want to ask the Guru for that. But how does it come, that samadhi? Remember what it says in that poem of Master's: by deeper, longer, thirsty meditation, Guru-given meditation, comes the celestial samadhi. Let's look at those four things that is said there. By deeper meditation. Our meditations so often are merely on the surface. We have to develop the ability to have intensity of meditation. So when you meditate, don't look so much for, I'm going to sit here for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, and I'm just going to sit here and last that long. Try to take some part of it at least, even if, let's say you're sitting for 1 hour. Don't feel that you have to save yourself up, and build yourself up slowly, and perhaps as I go deeper and deeper, by the end of my meditation I'll be deep. Try immediately when you sit, because you're fresh, you see, try immediately to go deep. And of that 1 hour of sitting, maybe you're doing many different practices. If you practice Kriya Yoga, you're going to be spending some time doing that, sometimes doing other techniques. Try to be intense. As I recommend, quickly. Be intense, because it's through the practice of being intense, even for a few minutes. If you can be intense for 3 or 4 minutes, very deep and concentrated, deeper, and going deep, looking in the spiritual eye, penetrating the darkness behind closed eyes. Go deep in there with intensity. And as you practice day by day, and week by week, month by month, that amount of intensity that maybe it takes supreme effort and you can only last for a minute or two, will slowly begin to expand. And this is what Master said. He says it takes practice to be able to meditate intensely for any depth and length of time. And if we hope to be able to attract samadhi to ourselves, that is a supremely intense experience. And yes, it comes to us, you might say, by divine grace, but we have to remember, be ready to be able to sustain and experience. The cup has to be formed to be able to hold that intensity, so we have to practice that by deeper, longer meditation. Now, Master, in one of his talks, I forget which title it is, but he says, it takes time. Most people are not prepared or able to practice deep meditation, intense meditation for long periods of time. But we must practice it also, not only intensely, but being able to extend the intensity and practice our meditation for a long time, deep, long meditation. It's hard to do meditation for length of time at first, but in time it becomes easy and natural, and you'll find it'll help you naturally go deeper into your practice. Deeper, longer, thirsty meditation. Thirstiness is of the heart. And you have to be continually thirsty. You see, a little bit of experience will slacken your thirst for a little while, but then your thirst begins to grow, because a little bit, that was attractive. I want more, I want more, I want more. You have to continually be able to be thirsty and to slacken that thirst, or to satisfy that thirst. And this, remember how Master describes God as ever new joy. By that it means that there's no end to the amount of joy that one can receive. You never get to the point where, oh, I've experienced joy, I suppose that's it. No, there's always more. But at the same time, the heart is wanting to experience more as well, because a little bit of God awakens within us the desire to go even deeper into God. And finally, this fourth point, deeper, longer, thirstier, guru-given meditation comes the celestial samadhi. And remember, let me read again this last part here. He says, Krishna is saying to him, he who serves me alone, who makes me his only goal, who lovingly surrenders every thought of I to me, who releases all attachment to aught else, and who, beholding me in all, bears no will or toward anyone, he, O Arjuna, enters my vast being. The satisfaction of that desire that all of us have for the divine, this comes through guru-given meditation. It's the necessity of releasing the little self, but I can't release the little self by I alone. We do it through identification with something higher, and this is the role of the guru in our life. We identify, so there is no more little me. There's only God working through me, and God works through instruments, so it's only identification. We identify with the guru. And so in the same way here, Arjuna has experienced this cosmic vision, but then longs again to see that God. I think that's so sweet. See God in the divine form, in the human form of his guru, in this case Arjuna. And so it is with us, as we see the guru, and we think of the guru simply as a man, as a personality, but it's not. It's God in that form. And I think this is the message that we need to take in everything we see in life. Whenever we get inspiration from something, we tend to think of it as it's coming from that form, it's coming from that person, it's coming from that vessel. But no, it's coming through God, working through those instruments. And so see, whenever you feel inspiration, when you feel we see light, you feel a sense of joy, look behind the instrument and try to see in everything, try to see that it's God there coming to you. And in this way, you begin to transcend that outer form. And that most perfect of instruments is an instrument that is unified in consciousness and is one with the divine. And that's the Guru. And if we attune to that, we find that this blessed samadhi, this too will be ours. And when the time is right, it too will be given to us as a divine gift, as a divine grace. But we must do our part and prepare ourselves. And the tools that have been given to us by our Guru is the tool of Kriya Yoga. Many blessings to you.